welcome to the Sigma Show, episode 63. I'm sorry, I was reading Lampy's message as we were going live. It says that we're playing Overwatch. I only just realized that.
Yeah, all right. I'm putting it on my invoice for you, Casey.
So I will get that fixed in a second. But welcome back to the Sigma Show. We've had a 2-week break, one for Easter, one because, it'd be hard in these streets to get some news sometimes. But before I let you know who's joining me this week, real quick, we'll go over what our topics are going to be. First up, there's been a lot of news about Netflix this past week, and I think maybe even before that. They've lost a ton of subscribers. They're kind of throwing out all sorts of ideas as to how they want to change their business model, and not too many folks are very happy about it. I'll talk to my guests about maybe what some of those reasonings might be and how they feel about them as subscribers or not of Netflix themselves. Afterwards, we've also gotten some news, and this is kind of an old story, like keeps propping back up, that Microsoft and Sony now are looking at doing some sort of fusion between ads and live service free-to-play games. So a way to kind of supplement the cost of game making by taking on some ad revenue, and how that can maybe impact the games we're looking forward to, like if it's a good thing, bad thing. We'll get into all of that. But here to talk with me about these topics today, Rachel Kaiser.
Hi, everyone. I'm news writer for GamesBeat, and you've probably seen me here before. And for once, I don't think we're actually going to have to talk to me about Activision Blizzard stuff.
I feel like we've had a fair number of times where you're here, we just talk about random others.
I know, it's just the running joke at this point.
Fair enough. Rexicon Jesse also joins us.
Oh, hey, everybody. Thanks for bringing me on, Casey. It's good to be back.
Anytime. Yeah. And as always, it's a pleasure to have the Fat Stacks here with us.
What's good, y'all? Hopefully everybody's had a good weekend. Appreciate the invite as always, man. Blessed to be here.
Yes. So welcome, everybody. Welcome, everyone in the chat. Before we get into the actual news, though, it's been a while. I'm very curious. I know some of our viewers probably are as well. What have we been playing? What have you been watching? What have you been reading and doing in our free time that you guys feel compelled to talk about? Like, anyone feel free to go first while I real quick change the tack on this stream. Yeah, go right ahead. Jump into it. If anyone has some games in their queue.
I mean, Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say I'm finally getting around to playing Kirby and the Forgotten Land.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's coming at a perfect time because I, have been playing all the big games. I've been playing Elden Ring, and then I was playing Tiny Tina, and I'm finishing up the review for Chinatown Detective Agency, which I don't remember if I talked to you guys about that before, but I could bring that up as well. But maybe.
But I don't mind hearing about it again if not, because I don't remember.
Okay, but yeah, it's just a it's a breath of fresh air. Kirby and the Forgotten Land, very obviously much more kid friendly, much easier, much cuter. It's I've got no space in my head left for big games at the moment. I have no more space left in my head for games aimed at adults. I will gladly take a game aimed at children, something that's simple, that's fun, that's cute, just as a palate cleanser. So I don't even know if the game is good or not. I just love it for that reason alone.
How much time have you spent with it, though?
Only a few hours so far, and a lot of that was yesterday when I had to take my car in to get serviced. So I was just sitting there in the lobby of the, in the waiting room of the dealership, just with my Switch, just playing Kirby.
Yeah, that's a good time to get something to de-stress you, is when you're waiting on car repairs and such.
Yeah, it's very obviously Super Mario Odyssey inspired. But I don't mind that because I really liked Super Mario Odyssey. But I can't shake the feeling that I'm being way easier on this game than I ordinarily would be, in terms of oh, this is so cute, I love it, it's so adorable, and I'm having fun playing it. I'm being way easier on it than I would be purely because this is exactly the kind of stress relief game I need for my own life right now.
Well, I find that interesting how easy breezy it feels at the start, because a lot of folks in chat are mentioning, because I was with some of them watching Marty play through the entirety of the game. By the end, it kind of gets very different. They kind of turn up the heat a bit in terms of difficulty, and just the scenarios in general just kind of get very wild and outlandish.
Oh yeah,
I think that's kind of a hallmark of Kirby games.
Yeah, I know that, and I'm not saying this is not me like reviewing the whole game
Uh-huh.
before you. It's just what I've played up to this point, which is just which is what I needed right now, which is like, oh, this is cute, this is fun, I don't mind it. It's not Elden Ring, for example, nor is it Chinatown Detective Agency, which is like, let's make you search through your browser, like look up like this entire list of like poisoning symptoms on your browser outside the game so that you can solve this puzzle in the game. And I'm oh
Man, they're assigning you homework.
my search history is going to be absolutely is going to be fascinating for the FBI agent monitoring me. But
Wow. Okay.
That's pretty
so
great.
yeah. If you guys don't, I don't know if we hadn't talked about it before. Chinatown Detective Agency is the 2D adventure game, sort of patterned after Carmen Sandiego, where
Oh.
you do research to complete the puzzles in the game outside. Like you have to keep a browser up where you, at the very beginning of the game, there's a stamp collecting puzzle where you have to figure out where a stamp is from based on like what's on the stamp and the ink on the stamp that the postal service used. Um, yeah, it's much, and I love it. I mean, I'm a mystery game person, but
Okay.
it's also I also look at it was like, yeah, you're a lot of work, you're a lot of homework. And you're not going to be everyone's cup of tea. I can understand that. So it's like once you take into context, like that's what I've been playing for the past like week and a half. I think you'll
Mhm.
understand like where the first few stages of a Kirby game are like,
Right.
by
Like, yes,
comparison.
this is a lot less of a hassle to get through.
Yeah,
Rachel, I think I legally have to get this game for my partner now that you've brought it up.
because I've said Carmen Sandiego.
All of the detective agency, she loves mysteries and stuff like that, and this sounds like she's into like Danganronpa and like hidden object games and all that stuff too. So
Same, yeah.
yeah, this sounds like thank you for telling me about this.
Yeah, not many people seem to have heard about it, and I'm considering like maybe if it had come out even a couple of weeks from now, we've got this huge release glut. I feel like more people would give it a try. Or release Desert. I feel like more people would give it a try.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what I've been playing for the last week or so.
Nice. Anything you've been watching that you want to share? Or
Oh, I did finish season 2 of Bridgerton.
okay, I caught some of the last episodes of that thanks to my fiance.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on it?
Okay, listen, I've got a long history with this series because I read the books it's based on.
Oh, I had no idea it was a book series.
I hate the books it's based on.
Okay.
It is. Listen, I've read a lot of romance novels. I say that with no shame whatsoever. These books are terrible romance novels. I mean, they're genuinely horrible books. I mean, not
Mhm.
just in terms. I mean, they've got the prose is fine. If I can slip into my book reviewer pants for a second, the prose is fine, but the characters are awful. The situation is awful, and whenever there's a historical romance, they seem just a little too eager to indulge in like classist, sexist, racist tropes under
Mhm.
the heading of, well, that's how things were back then. I'm like, this is not historical nonfiction. You're selling a fantasy that just happens to be set on Earth, and that's what we call historical fiction. So
Mhm.
it's always very telling to me when you see just how much they're willing to indulge in these sort of nastier tropes as well. Like, I mean, the very first book, there is sexual assault, and I'm trying not to say that too loud because I don't want us to get too I don't want to get too into it, but it
Mhm.
happens on page, so we read it happening, and the game and the book treats it the book treats it like it's a beautiful romantic encounter. And the
Ugh.
the third book involves the romantic lead coercing his love interest into a relationship based on the fact that he thinks she's a scullery maid. The fifth book involves a father who comes this close to beating his children in the text. The only reason he doesn't is because somebody else gets there first. So there's a lot of abuse. There's a lot of like dysfunction, and it's treated as if it's the fluffiest, most lovely bodice ripper you've ever read in your life. It's a book that is
Huh.
spectacularly unaware of what it is actually about, and
Wow.
the Shondaland series kind of continues that a little bit. It's trying very hard to get away from it. It's trying very hard to be this, beautiful historical rom-com. And they've done a lot of work, especially in like rewriting the nastier elements of the books, and also, they're trying to have this, diverse cast, and have
Yeah,
this.
like I think the casting was like a big
Yeah.
thing for that series early on because like
Oh.
it's very fantastical in the sense that during this time period and this location, it kind of didn't look the way it does in the show.
No. And I mean, again, considering historical romance novels are basically just fantasy novels that just happen to be set on Earth, I'm fine with. I have no problem with the series doing that. It's just that I don't think they filed off enough of the nasty shit that's in the second Bridgerton novel. They didn't do it enough for this series. So there's this underlying like kind of like awfulness in this entire story, and especially since for a series that is trying very hard to ditch like the classist and racist tropes that would have existed in the historical time period, they're also dipping into colonialism a little bit, because they've changed the female love interest for season 2 so that she's from India, and
Right.
she's white in the novel, obviously. But they are making it a whole thing, is that she's from India, so that she's an outsider to polite English society. And I'm like, oh, we're ditching all the rest of this, but it's a big deal that she's from India. So it's just a weird, like, it doesn't even fit within the lore of its own universe at this point.
Right.
So also it's not sexy. I'll just put it that way. So
No, that
was the review that
I noticed,
everyone wanted. Yeah.
I noticed kind of right away that it was very much failing to like generate any sort of chemistry between any of the characters that supposedly liked each other.
Yeah. And
It's just kind of dumb. And I have a personal beef with kind of Shonda Rhimes' works in general. Like I've kind of hated her writing ever since Grey's Anatomy. Like the best thing she probably ever did was Scandal, and it's only when they do the kind of Scandal of the Week type plot lines. Like when Olivia Pope from Scandal is doing her job, that show is actually pretty interesting. When this stupid love triangle involving the president and like all whenever that kicks in, it is the worst. And that is what it seems like that show loves the most, is like that kind of messy romantic comedy nonsense.
Are you saying you don't like a love triangle between three insufferable people who are absolute garbage? As
Sometimes drama sells.
well, and oh god, and that's basically Bridgerton season 2. So if you wanted this incredibly uninvolving and boring love triangle between three people who have no chemistry with each other, and also just one last big rant about this. I'm gonna do like a whole separate rant in a blog post or something. But the first season actually did something I thought was really great, which is that it added people who are not of the aristocratic class to the cast. So there's a lot of words there that sound the same. But there's a whole storyline about like a man who's a boxer who is trying to open a business, and it's this whole separate storyline about somebody who is not like of the aristocratic rich class. And it adds a little bit more interest to the story, because the story is about the book is about some very wealthy people who are complaining about how difficult their lives are. And so it's great to see a little bit of like, hey, here are people who actually have difficult lives in this time period. And the second season doesn't really do that. There are no characters who are not there are no major characters who are not of this aristocratic class. I mean, I don't think the main love interest counts. She says she's an outsider, but she's still very wealthy. She's still very she still participates in the pageantry of it all. There's nobody who is on the outside saying, hey, you guys are complaining about a lot of stuff you really don't need to be complaining about. And there's also like way too much emphasis on the whole Gossip Girl aspect of it, which I don't.
Yeah.
Which sucked in the books. It sucks in the show. So anyway, I'm done. Rant over.
Well,
Somebody else talk now.
No, I want to bring up because I've been kind of raving the last couple of weeks on the show about The Gilded Age on HBO, which is another series that's kind of set in that same time. Like if you've ever watched Downton Abbey, it's by that writer, Julian Fellows.
Ooh.
And Downton Abbey is essentially like a good version of Bridgerton, where yes, it's focused on that kind of ruling class, but then like Rachel mentioned, it also focuses on like the working class just under them and kind of how they interact with each other and a bunch of stuff, how they tie together. Downton Abbey was maybe a lot more soap opera-y. Like there were some things that were like, all right, this is a little far-fetched for like this group of people. But Gilded Age kind of pulls a lot of that into like a much more realistic thing, and then they do the thing where like this is how people would have acted in this time period. Yes, with the nastiness and the classism and the racism and stuff, but they still represent those people. Like they show you characters from that side of it and how they have to deal with the world in like a very real way, even though it's a made up story. Like it just makes a lot more sense narratively and retains the story it's telling. Like yes, it's about these rich people, but like you do come to care about the characters and what their motivations are, despite the fact that they're like 100 miles away from anything you personally would care about, especially in that day and age. So like I find that to be very impressive. Whereas Bridgerton is like, oh, we want a fantasy of an age that is maybe by the writers looked at lovingly, but like nobody else thinks of it that way. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting cultural thing because it's like what, like number 2 or 3 on like Netflix's top 10 list for like however many weeks when it first came out, and I couldn't understand why. I'm like, why do people watch this shit? I still don't get it.
Well, just real quick, what's weird to me is that they've come up with like I think they have some like semi-official explanation for why it's so much more diverse than it would have than historical England was at the time, which is that Queen Charlotte, who is the wife of King Edward the is black in this universe, as opposed to, because I mean the historical, there's been some debate about her ethnic background, the real woman, and she is actually black in the show, and so that's their explanation for why there's a much more diverse like population of England
so like
than there would be ordinarily.
Alternate history England.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, I mean, I don't see why, like it's got to go a little bit further back than her, because there are a lot of it was diverse even though she's an adult, and there's lots of other there's a diverse adult population. It's like, did they just spring into existence when she took the throne? It's a little bit odd, but I'll accept it.
It's weird.
It's like it's a fantasy set on Earth. Let's just go with that explanation.
Yeah, like you can get past the casting stuff pretty quick. Mm-hmm. The sad part though is that once you do, it's just terrible. Yeah. So like it's just kind of like, oh, I don't want to watch this regardless.
Exactly. Yeah.
Lampy asking, in case you're gonna watch the Downton Abbey movie. I was planning on it. I heard it's very terrible. So maybe not like
which one,
immediately.
The new one?
Oh, well, like whichever one is already out, because I hear that there's another one coming soon. I think, right?
Yeah,
the one that just came out soon.
There is one that came out, because I was just mentioning that to Lampy. Yeah, so there is one that came out in 2019. And there's one coming out in 2020 called A New Era.
Huh. Okay. Whichever one is already out, I've heard is bad. Mm. But I'll probably still watch it eventually. I really do love Downton Abbey.
That's because Downton Abbey is great.
It is great. But all right. Does that wrap it up for you, Rachel?
Yep. That wraps it up for me.
Jesse, you were getting ready to go into things. Did you have something you wanted to share with
the
class?
I was just trying to fill the space. But yes, so Thursday's anime night with some friends of mine. We started watching My Hero Academia, which big fan, awesome. Hulu decided to crap out on all of us, and we couldn't watch it. So we were like, all right, well, what else can we do? And my partner and one other person was like, well, we caught some of Our Flag Means Death, and that's really good. We could watch that. We can get to HBO. That's letting us log in. We watched that. What an absolute delight of a show. Like, I didn't want to sidetrack from My Hero because I was enjoying that so much, but I might be okay with finishing that and then going back, because it is that freaking good.
What is the like premise? Because I've been hearing that as well about that show. It's a Taika Waititi joint, right?
Yeah. So all I knew was like pirates, and then Taika Waititi, and that was it. And it looked sort of similar to like What We Do in the Shadows, and that's what I heard it kind of compared to, which I love. So I was like, okay, cool. But like the pitch that got me is the real like, what got me about it was the fish out of water. The captain of this pirate vessel. And this is all gotten into like immediately, so it's not spoilers, is like a wealthy, well-to-do English aristocrat person who is like, I hate my life and I want to live an adventure. And so he hires this crew of like pretty not very good pirates and then is wearing like these elaborate like high English costumes and is like, I'm gonna be the gentleman pirate, and it's like really squeamish about like blood and like all things related to piracy. And like the crew in the first episode like want to try to mutiny and just kill him because they're like, we're not doing anything. And like, but like he's reading them like bedtime stories and is like trying to like, it's a beautiful mix of like trying to soften up like hard people and trying to come to terms with like not being such a like coward or a soft person in a lot of ways.
Okay.
And it is contrasting in so many ways that it really gets me in a good way. And like it's super funny. It is it's less about jokes and more about like just the awkward and delightfully strange situations that this particular group of people could get into. So it has a unique spin on it for like what the joke is.
Cool. Nick the OG is saying that he's based on a real person who did that, this aristocrat.
Steve
didn't know
Bonnet,
that.
yeah.
Oh,
He was in
man.
Assassin's Creed 4.
Oh. Yeah, it's really good. I'm so looking forward to continuing watching it.
There's only one season of this out now?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, yeah, maybe I'll start that soon too.
And then before My Hero, we actually watched and finished Reservation Dogs, which is also YTT. And that was on...
Oh, that was the one with like the Native American kids?
Yeah, really
Right,
good
okay.
show. No,
Yeah,
they're
that
just...
looked really cool.
I'm so happy that I assume this is because of Thor Ragnarok.
Probably.
Yeah, that like people started giving him money to make stuff and like creative freedom to make stuff because he was great before this, like with What We Do in the Shadows and stuff. But like, I'm glad I didn't like that movie. I thought it was kind of bad, honestly. But I'm glad it happened because now he's able to do this kind of stuff and we are all benefiting from it. Because his stuff is fantastic.
I want to check that out. It sounds delightful. Anything else you've been watching or playing for that matter?
I started playing Machinum. It's a little point and click adventure puzzle game that came out like quite a few years ago. A friend got it for me. My friend Blake got it for me because I didn't know what to play. He's like, play this. I love this game. I was like, okay.
Nice.
Machinarium. Yeah. Machinarium. I think is how you pronounce that. So
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
yeah, I'm gonna be playing that on Monday too to play some more of it. But yeah, it's a cute little game. There's no dialogue. Everything is done in like pictures of trying to describe things, and I really love that. It like reminds me of like the manga Gon and like some other stuff that just focuses on like a universal language and trying to solve puzzles with that.
All right, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. Looking forward to continuing playing it.
Sweet. Does that do it for you then?
Aside from me just continuing to play Dead by Daylight too much, yes.
Got to get those hours in.
Gotta.
Fast X, did you have anything you wanted to talk about? Games, TV?
Man, the way you guys talk about shows, I feel like I am so left out. I barely turn on my TV half the time.
Oh, man.
But for me, of course, I'm a big anime guy, so that's kind of like where I lie. I stick in the anime realm. But for me, if you guys have not seen Ranking of Kings, it will make you cry.
Yeah, I finished that. That show was fantastic.
Ranking of Kings is definitely is up there for me in anime, only because I've watched so many similar anime like that, and the premise of it, you can really certain elements of definitely in real life you can attain to from if you watch, if you guys haven't seen it yet. I'm not gonna give it away, but the main character is just classic, and everybody can relate to this main character in some way or another when it comes to a struggle in your life.
Yeah, it's like a seminal underdog story, right? Like,
Yeah, so
like you can't help but root for Boshi, the main character.
right, you know what I mean? So, and his family life, whoo-wee, Yeah, I mean, yeah.
No, it gets surprisingly dark. Like it's very uplifting, but like there's some like evil in that world.
A turn real quick, real quick. But yeah, it's definitely a show if you haven't seen it yet. It's definitely an anime worth to watch. It is on Crunchyroll, so if you have Crunchyroll, I don't know whatever other platforms it's on. I know I just have Crunchyroll, so you know.
That might be where it is. Like I haven't seen it anywhere else, unless you're on the, on the pirate website.
Yeah.
But
So, Rising of the Shield Hero, of course, continuing to watch that. That just came out not too long ago. Continuation of it. I'm waiting on a few others too. You know, Classroom with the Elite, Vinland Saga, eventually down the line. So it's really about it. When it comes to, of course, been playing Mario Kart. Definitely love some of the new tracks. Still trying to get used to it.
one of the drops has happened already.
Just the first wave. You know,
one, okay.
Yeah, just the first wave. The second wave hasn't. No telling when that's gonna drop. So, but
So they didn't give like specific dates for it. Like
No.
I thought it was like after a certain number of months you would get the drops up until what was it, a year or is it 2 years of
Well,
the DLC they promised?
they're saying that by time all the courses drop, it will be 2023, December 2023. By time you get all the courses, that's all I have seen. I haven't seen
okay.
really anything definitive when the next waves are dropping, unless somebody in the chat has seen it. I haven't seen anything that come across my timeline yet.
Yeah, Nick the OG asking how much was that pack with the new Mario Kart tracks?
I think it was like, I want to say like 25 or 30, something like that. Somewhere in
that's
between
right.
there. Between 25 or 30. Yeah, if you bought like the whole expansion to Nintendo, you get it for
expansion
free.
pack.
But since I don't play my Switch other than for Mario Kart and Tetris half the time, and Smash every now and again, just buying the booster track, the course pack is a lot cheaper. Because I'm not gonna, some good old games come out, but I mean,
You're just not gonna spend the time.
I'm just not gonna spend the time with all that.
Yeah, I would love to have F-Zero X from the N64. That's like one of my favorite like racing games ever. But like it's not worth all the money I'm gonna have to put out for just the one game.
Right. So I mean, they have a remasters here and there, but yeah. But to me personally, it's better just to buy the booster course pack. It's just cheaper that way.
Okay, and that locks you in for all of them.
For all of them.
All of them.
Yep.
Okay.
Every single.
Lempy in chat says $24.99.
Yeah.
So.
Curse you, Lampy, beat me to it.
Yeah, because I believe Jess was talking about that last time when he was talking about. I was like, yeah, it's just cheaper to get the booster course pass. I'm like, yeah, it is. It's just unless you really play your Switch that much. I mean, but and a couple games I'm looking forward to is Mario Strikers Battle League comes out June 10th, and of course the Nintendo Switch Sports. I'm waiting for volleyball and badminton. Those are the two ones that I'm interested in the Nintendo Switch Sports.
I've never heard that sentence uttered before in my life.
Oh, volleyball and badminton?
That someone was like, I'm really looking forward to volleyball and badminton.
I can get behind the volleyball one. I've played badminton in real life, and it is fun. I don't see it in a Wii Switch Sports things, but knowing my kid, at some point he'll probably ask for that, and then we'll have to play it.
I mean, they have, of course, tennis in there, so.
Tennis is fun, yeah.
But I would have really liked to see table tennis. I don't even know if it's in there. The majority.
Yeah, I don't think it has been, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That hasn't been like a Nintendo Wii mini game before.
Yeah,
that I can think of.
I would have loved to seen table tennis. That would have been very cool to play some doubles or even singles in there in some table tennis. So, hey, Nintendo, can add that, please?
No, that's a good idea, actually. That seems like kind of tailor-made for the
right
freaking motion control stuff.
Yeah, you don't even need to see people, just paddles. For pretty much it.
What if the characters are paddles and they're just like
You know what? I wouldn't put it past Nintendo to do something like that. Just make mine Kirby. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Kirby mouthful modes a paddle.
Just make that is all.
Yeah, that works. We solved it. So
But,
all right. Yeah. What else have you been playing or looking forward to?
that's it for me.
Okay. I just took a week off of like streams and whatnot. But weirdly enough, I didn't play like a ton of new games. Like I went back to some older stuff that I've been neglecting, like Fire Emblem, which I still haven't finished. I got like over 60 hours in that game. I'm still not done with my first Houses playthrough. Like, is that game just that? Like, is a single playthrough like 80 hours? Like, is that what I'm missing? Because I thought it was shorter than that.
Which house are you playing?
Blue Lions.
I mean, I feel like maybe some of the other houses they don't have quite so chunky a storyline, but I did play Blue Lions first, and yeah, they can take up. I mean, it depends on how much of the side stuff you're doing as well, like the personal.
I've kind of
missions
stopped. Yeah, I was doing a lot of people's like side requests because like you get like special weapons for completing them, and like they were kind of cool stories. So like I was kind of really into it. But now I'm like, oh, I kind of want this game to end, so I'm sort of starting to ignore some of the stuff they're asking me. But the fact that the game isn't wrapping up still, like it seems like they still want me to spend like weeks talking to students and running around the monastery. I'm like, can we get to the end game?
Yeah, I think if you go back and replay some of the other houses, it'll be sort of like, okay, I'm not doing all these side quests. I think that's why the next playthroughs will probably be shorter because you're like, yeah, I'm just like, we're not going to do personal quests. You don't need special weapons. These weapons are perfectly fine. After a certain, I think on the next playthroughs, you'll probably go faster just because you'll be a little less inclined to listen to their crying about their personal lives.
Lampy says 50 to 75 hours according to the internet. So yeah, I know I'm close, but I guess I'm not there just yet. But because I've been diving back into Fire Emblem, I've weirdly gotten really excited for Three Hopes, like the new Dynasty Warriors type Fire Emblem game that's coming soon in a couple of months, because that seems to be continuing the story, or at least giving you a different perspective of that story from Three Houses. And like I'm obsessed with the Three Houses characters. Like I love those students so much. Like they're so personable, they're so cool. So more stuff with like featuring them like is right up my alley. And I don't really care about Dynasty Warriors, Musos, and stuff like that. Like it's not my cup of tea. But just because it's like featuring not just Fire Emblem, but the Three Houses characters from Fire Emblem, like I'm very excited for it all of a sudden.
That's definitely adding to the collection. Sure.
Yeah. But outside of that, progressing slowly in Elden Ring, playing a ton of Smash as usual. But in terms of watching, I finished a series on Netflix, an animated series called Scissor 7. Has anyone heard of this show?
No.
I believe it's Chinese made, and it's an anime in the sense that it borrows tons of tropes from it, but like its art style is actually a lot closer to if you guys have ever seen the cartoon OKKO on Cartoon Network. No. Have you guys seen Chalk Zone on Nickelodeon? No. All right, well,
it's naming shows we've never watched. What do you got?
Well, I'm trying to get a picture in your head of what the animation style is. It looks like kind of like crayons almost. Like it doesn't look as like childish, but it doesn't look as clean as like, My Hero Academia or Demon Slayer or something like that. But at the same time, it does action incredibly well. Like it has amazing fight sequences with like crazy special effects, like characters that do really cool shit. Like they're designed really cool. Like everyone who's of importance like looks recognizable and like, oh, this could be a character in a gacha game that you would pine for because of like how awesome like their flourish is and their color scheme is or whatever. Like it looks fantastic. But it's actually like very funny. Like it's ridiculously humorous. Like the main character, without spoiling too much, is a hairdresser. And it's because he lost his memory and washed up on this island. And this chicken person who found him, essentially is putting him to work to make money because he's kind of a con man type dude. He does care about him, but he's kind of a con man. And he's really good with a pair of scissors. And so that kind of translates to him becoming a hairdresser. But it turns out he's like this legendary assassin. And that's why he's so good with a blade. And he has the telekinetic power to control the specific scissors he has. And people start showing up to murder him because he has a past. He doesn't necessarily know why, but he's able to fend them off. And like you keep learning more about his history while he gets in these really funny, weird situations because his reaction to all this stuff is just over the top and weird. So like it's very comical. There's like 3 full seasons out. The 3rd one just came out this year, and I finished it. And apparently there's a movie coming next. So the story is surprisingly deep. It gets surprisingly emotional. And it is very funny on the surface, like all the way through. Like I really love that show. I cannot wait to see more of it. So if you haven't seen it all, Scissor 7, check it out on Netflix. It's awesome.
Okay. Cool.
And other than that, I was watching a couple of documentaries. I finished The Last Dance, which is the 90s Bulls documentary, or the Michael Jordan documentary, because it's mostly about him. He really does make the 90s Bulls, in all honesty. I grew up watching the Bulls. Like my older brother is like a big basketball fan. He loved Michael Jordan. I mean, who didn't in that era, right? But like they're talking about all the behind the scenes stuff for like playoff games and championship games that I actually watched as a kid. So like it really put it into like new illuminating context. And like there was stuff that I just had no idea about was going on in that organization and with like Michael Jordan's life in general. That really just paints him in a new light, not in like a negative or positive way, really, but it just puts him as a human being in a lot more perspective than like this image that most people have of just Michael Jordan, the great basketball player, right? So like it's really good. Like it's even if you don't like sports at all, which at this point in my life, like I really don't follow any sports anymore. Like stories like that are still super interesting. Like they really frame it as more of like a history thing. Like if you care about history, like the kind of stories that some of these sports documentaries go into kind of inform a lot of what's going on in the world in that way. And it actually explains the proliferation of American culture throughout the rest of the world. Like the NBA weirdly had a lot to do with that. So yeah, that was super interesting. But that's pretty much it for me in terms of like gaming and watching. So with that, let's get into. We've been kind of skirting around Netflix pretty much this entire show, and it's weird that it's actually the main topic. But we'll jump into that. Netflix apparently lost what was the number, like 200,000 subscribers by their last quarter's earnings or something like that. So that's what was that, like $15 billion? They said that equal to something like that. Mm-hmm. So lots of money, lots of subscribers down the toilet for Netflix. And this has spurned a number of what seemed like kind of bad or at least consumer unfriendly decisions. First of which was them saying that they were going to crack down on password sharing. I don't know how many of you guys here are like the primary Netflix subscriber or are maybe using a friend's account or whatnot. But essentially, they're saying like it would be like one account per household going forward. This hasn't taken effect yet, at least not in my area. But they keep talking about this coming soon. On top of that, apparently they're looking at adding an ad tier, which is something we're getting into with the Microsoft and Sony deal. But apparently a still paid but cheaper tier of Netflix service where it's supplemented by ads in the middle of your shows and whatnot. And last but not least, they're essentially slashing the budgets of a lot of the animation that they have on Netflix. I was just talking about a show that I loved that's a Netflix original anime. But apparently this is what's going to be cut first. There's 2 projects that were in the works that apparently they are not doing anymore. One was from a Roald Dahl series, I believe. And another was a graphic novel called Bones, if I'm not mistaken. But kind of highly anticipated. Yeah, but they're essentially shuttering the ideas of putting that into a Netflix series because animation is expensive. So with these changes and with Netflix's push to try and recoup some funds, how do you guys, as like fans of a lot of the pop culture stuff that has shown up on Netflix over the past couple of years, how are you responding? Like, does this sound like something you would adapt to, or something that's going to maybe push you even further away from what they're trying to do?
A lot of this was foreshadowed, though.
Oh yeah.
In what way?
All right. Obviously, I deal in a lot of stocks and stuff. So if you look at first of all, let's look at it like this. In October, because I got some notes here for specifically from the stock prices of Netflix at certain points. Now, obviously, Netflix started jumping up because of COVID. I mean, it was gradually going up, but COVID definitely made it go up even more. So in October 24, 2021, Netflix stock price was at its highest, 690.31 at its highest. If you look at it now, it's dropped all the way down to like 291, and that's the lowest it's ever been since January of 2018. Now it started dropping significantly, well, slowly started dropping around November 7th, 2021. I think what Netflix, in my opinion, should have done was announced all that way before these changes earlier to soften up the blow what was going to happen. I think their planning was poor. Because eventually coming out of COVID and everything, people, not just that, but also the competition, Disney, Paramount, HBO. I mean, there's a lot of competition now for streaming services. And once these shows said, okay, well, why are we giving Netflix a cut when we can just have our own streaming services, which kind of sucks for us as the consumer, because now you got to pay 3 or 4 different streaming services because your shows are split up on different deals instead of being on one particular streaming service. So competition was one of the biggest things as well, which Netflix could have foreshadowed that. Or the moment Disney said that they were pulling all their stuff out, they were gonna have Disney Plus. That should have been a telltale sign. Of course, HBO and was it Stars and all that, they were already having their deal.
Yeah, Stars pulled out forever ago. Like that was one of the first times someone was like, "Oh, let's take all our stuff off Netflix." It was Stars, because they had a lot of shows I watched on there.
So, if Netflix would have did all this, when it came to commercials and all that earlier, like way earlier, let's say like 2019 or so. Hey, look, we're gonna be doing this tier, doing it now. It's like you had other places that were already doing it. The reason why people were paying for you because you didn't do these things. You know what I mean? So now you're gonna have more people possibly leaving because now all of a sudden you're gonna add this, do that. You should have just done it beforehand and possibly save yourself the headache now. But it goes with competition, pretty much. You know what I mean? It just is what it is. It just sucks for the consumer, is what it's gonna suck for, because now you just have to put out more money
to get the stuff
what you want. Yeah.
I think part of the problem is that a lot of these other streaming services as well, these have huge media conglomerates that are funneling money into it. Their money doesn't come solely just from subscribers to their subscription services. Like Disney, for example, is not making the money for Disney Plus original content is not coming from Disney Plus subscribers. It's coming from Disney. And Netflix, I don't think Netflix really has that kind of like giant money pot to access, which is not to say that Netflix doesn't have money, but it doesn't have quite the safety net that the other ones do. Because if Disney Plus loses a bunch of subscribers and it ends up flopping, which I don't think it will, but if it does, Disney will keep going. It's not Disney. That's not going to sink Disney, I don't think. But I think Netflix losing even like bleeding subscribers, I think that could sink Netflix.
Yeah.
It sounds like because Netflix has been known to hide a lot of the numbers behind the scenes. Like they won't tell you how many people are watching the thing. They won't tell you how much they paid for a certain thing. But then you'll always get these outlandish numbers like here and there, right? Like a lot of their comedy specials, they gave this person 30 million. They gave this person 40 million for just like an hour comedy special. Like if that's how much they're willing to pay for like a big name for like a single thing, like how much are they paying like Ryan Reynolds for like the 3 movies that he put on that show? How much are they paying like these animation studios to kind of make a full series or that has several seasons? Like how much did Castlevania cost? like stuff like that.
Look how much they paid Dave Chappelle for his deal.
Exactly. Like Netflix spends a lot of money on this content, and I have no idea whether it's worth it or not. But it seems like a lot of what they do to attract people to their platform is to say we will give you more money than anyone else. So like I'm just wondering like what is the return on that? Like have they been losing money like this whole time?
Well, I mean, they've been steadily losing the content because of, like Rachel said, and of course what Lampy said in the chat, but the content, like, another one is when you have movies, right, that go out to the theaters automatically after so long, it's going to go to certain streaming services. They're going to host it. Netflix used to be like, okay, well, we'll pay you to put it on our deal. Netflix don't have that anymore. They, like Rachel said, there's really no big backing to Netflix per se when it comes to a major, corporation like Disney. Warner Brothers is another one. Time Warner. You know what I mean? So talk about that. Even AT&T split from communications now, and now Warner Brothers have their own separate deal. So AT&T literally just said, "Oh no, we're not getting into that," because it was costing them a lot of money to have both. So yeah, losing that many subscribers hurts. As you can see, the stock price just keeps dropping. So
yeah, because that is the core of their entire revenue market is their subscribers.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and when it comes to content, I don't know how they're going to supplement that per se, because yeah, you have Netflix originals, but now you're kind of competing now with, like Marvel movies are going on Disney, or certain movies are going on, Paramount. So so now you're going to say, well, we're going to put ads in there to kind of supplement that. Or now, well, you can't share your password to supplement that. Man, you should
these seem like desperate grabs.
Right, yeah, exactly.
For revenue. And it's like, well, if you screw up the customer experience, like Netflix is still like my preferred platform because it's so easy to use. Like there's just nothing in the way of you getting to what you want to watch and then starting to watch it straight through. Like if I want to binge a thing, Netflix is far and away the easiest way to do that. Like Hulu can be problematic. The HBO app is terrible. It is god awful. The HBO Max app, like Netflix just functions and it functions on everything. Yeah, all these other things just suck in comparison.
Well,
so like, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say that I think the thing with Netflix is that it started as a content aggregator, and that was what everyone was chasing originally. And then when other streaming services popped up, they were where Netflix started, which was as content aggregators. Like I use Disney Plus as the classic example, but that's how Disney Plus started. They're like, look at all the Disney films that we have, and that's and before that, and like as it's sort of like Plan B. And Netflix transitions to content creation, not so much content aggregation anymore. And it no longer has content aggregation to fall back on because, like Lampy said in the chat, all the things that they used to aggregate are now on their own streaming services. And the problem is when other streaming services caught up to the content creation Plan B a lot faster than they did the content aggregation Plan A. So, and like an Apple TV Plus movie just won Best Picture before any Netflix movie no Netflix movie has ever gotten even close to that. And it's almost sort of like, you got a Plan C, Netflix? And it's looking like this is their Plan C. It's like, okay, well, we're failing on selling original content. We're failing at being an aggregator now. So now we're going to become an ad platform.
And so in you guys' opinion, does that seem like a viable strategy? Like, can something like this save Netflix in the long run?
No, what they should have, like I said before, they should have done this earlier, like way before the pandemic. Not saying that it would have saved them, but at least it would have gave them maybe a little cushion. Even as it was rising before all these streaming services took all their content and put it on their deal.
Well, I mean, because it's hard to say that they should have done it before this, because before like the pandemic and before all these other competitive services popped up, Netflix was kind of riding high. Like their numbers were only going up,
Right.
And,
Like, no. What
like
I'm
they had like Hulu as comparison, right? And the first thing I remember about Hulu is how much I dislike the fact that you pay for Hulu and they still give you ads.
Right, but there's also a tier system, I believe, with Hulu where if you pay so much more,
Yeah, like you pay more, then they get
right.
rid of ads. But it's like, no, like if I'm paying for if I subscribe to this service at any amount, it seemed absurd to me that they would still show you ads because Netflix was the progenitor of all this stuff. Like they were the first ones to come out with a thing that says like, hey, we'll put a bunch of streaming content in your face, and you pay a monthly cost for the service, and this is how it functions. It's like Hulu came up with the idea like, oh, we'll have ads supplement this for whatever reason, like because maybe they didn't have the backing or the content or whatever. Worked out for them because I think eventually they got bought by ABC. But like that was why Netflix was preferred to Hulu. Like I don't think Hulu was ever kind of ranked above Netflix at any point until maybe recently, now that it's aligned with, the whole Disney catalog. So I don't see any incentive for them to have gone, oh, well, let's put ads in it now. Let's crack down on password sharing now. Because like they were still on top. Now that they're tumbling, it's like, okay, well, these are things we didn't want to do because it would probably hurt our brand and maybe cost us some subscribers. But now they're looking at it like, well, if we're losing subscribers anyway, then we might as well pull the trigger on this. But like my worry is, wouldn't that cause like an even faster hemorrhage? Because like almost everyone I've seen in response to Netflix putting these ideas out in the world are saying like, oh, well, I subscribe to the service, but I've got my uncle, my aunt, my kids in another household who use the account. So I'll just pay for something else. Like I'll just stop using it then if I can't actually use it the way I've been using it. Like this sounds like a bad idea.
Now,
on paper at least.
What you just said in the middle of that, actually, when you talk about ABC buying out Hulu, that statement there, if Netflix drops far enough, that might be a possibility for somebody to snatch Netflix.
That's a good point.
At a certain stock price. I feel for those who bought Netflix at 300 and something and 400 and something thinking that it's not going to fail. When it comes to streaming services, as big as Netflix, I mean, you can't get as big as Netflix without scratching your head. Be like, man, eventually with the competition, possibly things can drop. And of course, with all the content being gone off of there, like we've said numerous times, there's a possibility Netflix could drop to this point. Now, it's the whole dang if you do, dang if you don't. If we do this early, it can hurt us early, but well, now if we do this now, it's like, well, so if it drops any further, you might have somebody with some decent size money come and take Netflix if they drop even further because of the issues. Now, what I'd hate to say this, it'd be interesting if I see Disney snap up Netflix. I ain't gonna lie.
That would be sad.
I think it's interesting that you went to Disney. I'm curious if there are any other possibilities that you.
Well, you have Warner,
Paramount.
Yeah, Paramount. Yeah, I mean, but you're gonna have to have somebody with some large pockets to snatch Netflix, though.
Like that would be like a landmark thing. So it would have to be another like really big name that's already in the streaming wars, right? Like I can't imagine it would be like a new player who wants in would say like, oh well, I'll take Netflix, because like at this point everyone who's gonna be in the fight is in the fight. Like Apple's in there, like, and
every major conglomerate,
right?
Yeah,
everybody who is in entertainment has their own streaming services now. Where are we at? Apple TV Plus, Peacock, HBO Max, Hulu, Paramount Plus. Did I say Paramount Plus already? I didn't.
Yeah.
Netflix.
CBS has a thing, right? But like, is it?
That's Paramount Plus.
That's Paramount Plus.
Okay,
I
CBS
believe.
Paramount. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And hence why I said Disney first instead of Apple, because Apple has their own deal, and I don't really see Apple going after Netflix. I mean, it could happen, but like I said, it's gonna take somebody that can take a loss, that can take losses.
Mm-hmm.
So,
because like honestly, the thing. Levy says, "Don't forget CNN Plus, Casey." They closed that.
They actually got canceled.
They closed it down after a week.
Yeah,
a week.
A week.
300 million gone down the tube. Like,
wow.
Where did that much money go?
They freaking beat Quibi? That's impressive.
They did. They really did. They got the
Whibby,
record.
that's a name I've not heard in a long
Yeah.
time.
But you know what? This sounds bad, right? The whole big companies eating other companies and all. But remember, we liked the fact that there was like one big streaming thing, and now that there's like a million and all this stuff is getting like, oh, we're going back to cable. If a lot of these ones start to fail and some of these bigger ones start to eat the little ones again, we start to shrink that pool back.
Well, yeah.
I don't think that's that terrible.
Well, it'll be like I said before, consumers would like it because now, you know, you don't have to pay for as much. Just like when Crunchyroll formed with Funimation, like okay, now we get one huge anime service. So it's like I'd rather that than pay for.
Yeah, like there are some pluses to that. Like yes, the whole monopoly thing is terrible and we hate it, but also I'm gonna pirate this stuff if you don't make it easy for me.
But the problem with it becoming the monopoly is then, well, I yeah, there's a lot of terrible things happening right now, and like terrible UIs and who has what shows and you know all this different stuff and who you're spending money with. But if 3 people have all of the shows, if it's Disney, Paramount, and Warner, they can control, like they did with cable,
the price,
how much it costs. Yeah, so now it's not $10 for Netflix, $10 for HBO Max, and you can mix and match each month. It's you have to pay $30 a month, and you only get this many options because we control everything. So stuff it. Like, what are you gonna do? So I do think
it's a double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah,
Right.
I think ultimately monopolization is worse.
No, it's a fair point.
So we were talking about this quite a while ago, but I'm going to bring it up unless someone else has another thing they want to add directly to this. It was about
go ahead.
password sharing.
Go ahead. Go right ahead. We're still on this topic.
I'm really curious about that because, like, I know from a consumer standpoint, like we currently have Discovery Plus for a month because we want to watch BattleBots and a couple of documentaries. And like, yeah, we'll catch a few episodes like Ghost Brothers or something, and then we'll get rid of it in a month once we've done everything we wanted. And like this, because there are so many streaming services, like that's kind of the model you have to work with now. Is like, yeah, we're gonna set up for Netflix while you know Altered Carbon, and then we'll watch it, and then we'll drop it, and we'll do you know HBO for 1 month, and then we'll drop it, and like those are the floating numbers that we're going to have to deal with, and that you can make a big story about, you know, like we've lost X percent, 0.9% of our viewerships, 200,000 subscribers, but like they're rotating. Like that's what's going to happen.
Like, so you're thinking, oh, this 200,000, they'll be back eventually.
Yeah, they'll filter in at different times when certain things happen. Like, you know, next month Discovery Plus could be like, we lost so many subscribers and we were one of them, but like, yeah, we were only going to be there for a month. They didn't have our long-term money. And for that long-term money, I think the password sharing is important. Like we pay every month for HBO Max, and we share that password with someone who pays every month for Netflix. And
yeah, and it's like a symbiote. Yeah,
trade-off. Right. Yeah.
So
you share mine, I share yours. We good.
Right. So they have both of those services have constant customers from these two entities because we can do that. Once that happens, they'll probably lose us both. And then they'll have us when we pick it up for 1 month, 2 months here and there because the Batman came out or whatever.
I'm just not a fan of the way it's sort of like talked about as if the people who password share are, you know, doing something illicit. It's like they're as if it's like somehow the equivalent of piracy or something. It's like, well, Netflix, you're the ones who are like have these like, you know, let's have all these profiles, let's have these family plans and everything. It's like you're trying to put the genie back in the bottle. This is, I mean, well, first of all, I think, you know, people did do that in the early days of Netflix. Netflix caught on that, okay, bunch of people using the same Netflix account because we have like a certain like threshold of devices each account can be logged in on. So what the hell, let's just introduce profiles and have everybody can have their own separate like little corral where they have all their content that they like. And they have set it up so that it is favorable to do that. And now they're trying to act like I don't know if Netflix itself called it a free ride, but that's the terminology I've heard being used, is that they want to stop people from having a free ride with Netflix. And I'm like, you're trying to demonize something that you yourselves made it easy to do, that you wanted people to do, because it expanded Netflix's profile. And it feels a little grimy that they're trying to
Yeah.
knock down and demonize something that they themselves set up, that they themselves made a thing for Netflix.
Yeah, and you see that response all over the internet, like a bunch of people who feel offended that Netflix would do this, right? It's like, oh, if you're gonna call me out as if, I'm like some kind of freeloader or whatever, then yeah. And honestly, it's the people who are paying, the people who are that core subscriber who are sharing it out. Like, they do that because that's beneficial to them. They want these other people to get, like, it's either like a loved one, a parent, a friend. And like Jesse said, there's a transactional thing there. Like, if that person is no longer able to provide that password to like their core group of people who give them access to all these other things, then they're screwed, right? It's like, so now they no longer have value to the group. It's like, so yeah, like, F this.
I think a lot of it has to do with either, their board and probably shareholders, because of the price drop. A lot of that with the price drop going on. So they got to find ways to somehow stop this this open wound that's just gushing that they have to somehow try to close it, or at least slow it down. Because I mean, yes, they did start a lot of stuff. That's the reason why a lot of people chose Netflix to begin with, because there were so many pluses. But now that this is gonna be like every other platform, because that's pretty much what it just gonna be like. They're gonna be like every other platform. All right, so now your share price drop. You don't really have this. You don't really have that. So what is that board gonna do, and what do they want for their shareholders? And that's kind of what it boils down to. So obviously, once again, it's all about money. So
yeah, it's like a reaction out of fear of losing money, right? And I feel like up until this point, Netflix has been really good at kind of pivoting whenever they're faced with an issue like this. Like when Stars pulled out, they kind of decided, I think it was at that moment, like when Stars pulled out, because they were sharing a lot of their content, they decided, we're going to start making our own content. And then you started getting like really good shows out of Netflix that surprised a lot of people, that they would come up with like really good original content. Then they started going like, oh, well, let's make deals with people that have like big names so that we can make good original content that people will want to see, like the Marvel deals and whatnot, right? And then when that got big, Marvel's like, give us our ball back. Netflix, it looked like, started to pivot towards like, all right, well, if we can't use these licenses, then we'll use these licenses. Starting to turn towards like video games, like The Witcher, like Castlevania, like
Arcane.
Stuff like that. Yeah. And so it's weird that rather than, because also that stuff was working, I feel like those shows were coming out and doing really well. I don't know monetarily how well, like maybe the video game stuff wasn't pushing, I mean, it can't have been pushing as many numbers as like, Marvel. So like maybe that's what's hurting them here, is that like, oh, we were making this much now and now we're making this much, right? But this just screams desperation in a way that feels like they're gonna stop the innovation and the pivoting to make like quality stuff, to kind of just pull dollars from wherever they can. And like that, to me, that kind of spells the end. Like it's like they've run out of ideas at this point. So they're going to go for like the lowest common denominator of just copy what the other guy did to try and pull in as much money before this all comes to a screeching halt. So like, yeah, I hadn't considered it before, but Fast X, I think you're dead on the money. At some point, they may be just looking to sell. Because like it's getting real hot out in these streets with all these other competitors.
Yep. And
like our time may have come.
So I mean, it could be a good thing. Like I said before, the reason why I said Disney, because of all the Marvel movies, all the success Disney is having, it would only bolster. Now, mind you, Disney makes money in other places, but that would only help bolster Disney itself, per se. Whereas we all know everybody else kind of has already somebody big in their pocketbook that can be like, well, yeah, we can afford this to go sideways. It's not really gonna matter. We just gonna write this off. It's just gonna help our taxes look good. It is what it is. But yeah, eventually, if Netflix drops another 100 points or so, because I think it's sitting at what 210. Let Netflix drop about possibly 150, somewhere around there. Might be talking about a fire sale or something like that if it gets any worse. So,
I mean, thinking about it that way, like these terrible headlines that are coming out,
so
it could be trying to get the price down a little bit to like trigger that.
I mean,
Wouldn't be the first time it's happened.
it went right. So
Or what if they're playing to the r/Wall Street bets and they're trying to drive the price down to get the average consumer to buy them so they don't get bought by big corporations.
actually, you know what?
They're trying to go to a meme stock situation.
Yeah.
Actually, Jesse, you are dead right. But let's look at it in the reverse. What happened if they would have done a stock split when they were at 690? It would have been way better at that point because you have look at Amazon, look at Google. They're about to do a stock split here this year. If Netflix would have done a stock split at that point, which they were sitting right on their high horses, if they would have done that and then this would have happened, it wouldn't have been so bad because now they would have had more investors investing into Netflix, meaning more money, and then this blow wouldn't have been as bad.
Let's
see what I'm
pretend
saying?
like someone in the audience doesn't know what a stock split is.
All right, a
Can you
stock
explain
split.
that to them?
All right, a stock split is when a company, let's say, does like you do a 4-to-1. For every one share you have, we're gonna give you 4 extra. Like Amazon is doing a 20-to-1 stock split. Amazon is worth over $2,000 a share. So if you own one share, when they do their stock split, you're gonna get 20 plus shares. But what's gonna happen is the stock price is gonna drop down. So you divide, 20 into whatever the stock price is, and that's what the average price is going to be. Like it gonna drop all the way down to like 150 or 130, whatever it is. A stock split just enables investors to get in at a cheaper price. So
And I think it spreads the purpose, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, FastX, is so that it spreads the possible losses across more people rather than like the few who hold like the stocks. So like if it does drop from 2,000 to like 1,000, the smaller number of people don't have to eat that because it's now spread over more people. So more people lose less money.
That's a good way of looking at it as well, because if I own Warren Buffett owns a lot of Apple. How many times Apple is split over the years? And it actually, the stock can still go back up, but yes, it also helps your losses as well. But it also gets more people to invest, which means just more money. So if Netflix would have been smart about this, their board would have done a stock because Tesla is now looking to do 2 stock splits in less than a couple years, which is almost unheard of that I haven't seen. But that would have helped them with the losses, and the blow would have been a whole lot less. So in Jesse's deal, it would have made sense just to it does kind of make sense. Well, if it drops this low, somebody gonna buy me because of all the negative deal going on, or possibly we're looking for somebody to buy us at this certain price if it drops lower. Has it happened before? It has. And that's what I say, oh man, what happened if that's why I got the thought, man, what happened if they would have done a stock split at their highest point at 690, do a 4-to-1 or a 5-to-1. And then let's say all the competition would have happened. It wouldn't have mattered. Why? Because now you had more investors in Netflix. There would have been more capital injected. So now it would have been like, oh, well, we got the money. We don't really have to fear a takeover or something like that, because now we have more money in the pot. You see what I'm saying? So, but that's what happens when you you let it ride up without any kind of, oh yeah, it's gonna go higher. It's gonna
They probably at that point there was nothing on the horizon. Honestly, they probably should have known. They probably should have had corporate spies out there with their feelers or whatnot. They should have known stuff was coming. But like they've been winning every single one of those battles up to that point. So I can see the hubris why they think, oh, like we deserve to be this high and we'll just continue to go higher.
But if you
I
look
can
at
see why they would think that.
But if you look at Facebook, it's happening to Facebook too. Facebook was up riding high, and now Facebook has dropped significantly because of certain things happen within that space. Because remember, Facebook, I believe, mainly runs off ad revenue and how they get people's data and, you know, funnel certain things. Like you can be talking about something, all of a sudden it shows up on your Facebook. Like, hold on,
Every day.
like like what?
Every day.
So hence why like you have some of these bigger juggernauts that the ones that are smart to think, all right, let's do a stock split so we can probably inject more capital into the company, makes it more affordable. But if anything were to happen, all right, it's not as bad when it comes to the losses being that dropped off of a cliff, or to say, like how Netflix is definitely falling off a cliff. It's like jumping off Mount Everest with no parachute right now with them. So
Yeah, so I mean, it like Netflix has been such a stable of like modern society. Like it was kind of a revolutionary thing. Like it introduced the world to the whole streaming service idea, right? And it's a norm today, but it wasn't when Netflix first came around. So like if this Titan does go the way of the dodo, like it's kind of it's monumental in that way. So like it's a thing to take note of.
yeah,
But we'll keep watching this to see how it progresses. Maybe they'll get saved. Maybe they'll get bought. I don't know, but it's definitely gonna be interesting to watch. But another shift is on the horizon. This is our final topic for today. Microsoft and Sony. And again, this isn't something brand new. It's something that's been talked about before, maybe even on this show. I feel like we might have had a discussion about it at some point. But Microsoft and Sony are looking at injecting ads into some of their titles, namely free-to-play titles, in order to kind of supplement the cost of development. And I'm just curious. We don't have to spend a ton of time on this because I know we went kind of long on the Netflix stuff. But I'm curious how you guys feel about this as gamers, because I know you all play video games. Even the free ones. Like, is there a version of this that works for you, or is this kind of universally just a bad idea to kind of stick ads in your video games?
I mean, I think kind of what you said earlier is how I feel, where you're like, I pay, if you're saying if you pay for a streaming service and it has ads,
don't want the ads
I'm
in
not
it.
paying
Yeah.
for it. Like, and that's how I feel too. It's like if I bought a thing, I should not have to put up with inconvenient thing for
What
money.
about for a free to play game? I'm kind of curious.
That I think does work. I want developers to make money. And if they give me something for free, and and maybe it has a you can buy it for this much version, maybe it doesn't. Then yeah, I don't know how else they would make money. So yes, I'm okay with that. I feel a little it's weirder, and this might be a like old school thinking. With like it feels weirder with like a PlayStation kind of thing, because like but it's such a big thing. It's not this indie, app store thing that someone made in their basement. Like it's a huge corporation. But I think that I hate saying this. I think they could do it and it could work out if it was a free game. And if it was under control, because there are some things that you play and you get ads at a rate that you're like, this isn't worth it. Like it doesn't matter that it's free. The main thing I'm doing is ads.
the question is, would you rather the ads or microtransactions? Because now that's the next battle.
I think I think the literature that is being put out about this, I mean, because we're hearing a lot from insiders on the program. So I think the word that is being put out, they're trying to make it sound as palatable as possible, because they're talking about how both companies have said they're strictly vetting the companies whose ads would appear. And so it's not just like, highest bidder. Supposedly, they only want very specific companies. They would It would only be in free-to-play games. Microsoft has said that they wouldn't take any of the revenue. It would be split between the advertising company and the game developer. And I think there was, they said it would only appear in like places where it makes sense in the game. So like billboards, for example. So they're trying everything to make it sound as palatable and unobtrusive as possible. But I think it still comes down to a lot of people are just not going to want to have ads in their games. But I do think it's a little strange because we're being like Fat Stack said, we're being like pushed. Microtransactions are being aggressively pushed on us at all times. So I almost don't see the difference between the two. It's the same. It's like companies aggressively trying to get you to put money towards a certain thing, and you're being harassed on all sides to give up even more of your money. So like, what difference does it make if it's an ad for McDonald's and Fortnite or something like that? That's first free to play game I think of. But so what difference does it make if it's an ad for McDonald's and a free to play game, or here, buy this $5 pack of currency in order to to spend it in our store, whatever. I think free to play games have perfected the art of trying to aggressively harass you for money. So does it really make a huge amount of difference whether it's an ad or a microtransaction?
I'm sorry, but
no, go ahead, Jesse.
As you were finishing up your sentence, Rachel, Twitch zoomed out and started playing an ad underneath.
Right underneath. Yep. Yep. That's the thing nowadays. I've noticed that. Like, okay.
They took that upon themselves. Like, I have zero control over when that happens.
Yeah, they did.
But they said that was coming, though. They did say that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and
they
also
didn't ask me about it, though.
Also, I think if you have ads in a free-to-play game, it also opens up the possibility that they can then sell a version of the game that doesn't have ads in it. So you could, in theory, have a free-to-play game. It's like, oh, by the way, pay us like $2 a month, and you won't have to see any more ads in the game. All of a sudden, that creates a completely new revenue stream.
Yeah, and generally speaking, I think most people are okay with that trade-off. Like, yeah, like if it's free, I think there's a lot of players nowadays who are perfectly fine with getting something for nothing. Like they're like, oh, I want it free and I want no caveats at all. And it's like, come on, like something's got to give here. So like, but I do think there's a contingency of people who are like, all right, well, yeah, if I'm going to get this thing for free, there's going to be some kind of catch. Either there's a store full of microtransactions that I can ignore, or there are going to be like ad breaks, which I think is the worst implementation of this. Like that happens in mobile games all the time, right? Like you're playing a game and then you just get a commercial for like 30 seconds. Like that's probably the worst way to do this. If like, this is going to sound very capitalistic, but advertising can be an art form. Like there is merit to like being good at marketing. Like there are commercials in our society that have basically transcended and become like touchstones of like culture and like information sharing and whatnot. So like I don't hate ads for being ads. I hate bad ads, if that makes any sense. And like there's a way to do this where it does have a symbiotic relationship with the games. It doesn't, feel out of place. Like it makes sense and it becomes natural. And so everybody wins, right? The worry is that what we're going to get? Because there are so many examples of like with microtransactions, the exact opposite of, people just forcing them down your throat, like straight through your eyeballs, just mercilessly trying to get you to buy stuff at the expense of the gameplay experience. Now, I think it's much easier to do with advertisements, like blatant advertisements, than it is with buying virtual items.
Now, one thing that's interesting, we just talked about as soon as Jesse said about Twitch popping up with the ad. If they've done it in that particular format, I don't see anything wrong with it, where you still play the game, but it's at the bottom, that it shows up at the bottom without it actually cutting out the game. Now, that's a little bit more tasteful, if you ask me, in my opinion. If you're going to go that route of if you're playing a free game and the ad shows up, then minimize the gameplay screen and then put your ad down there. As long as I can keep playing, I don't care what ads you playing down there. You know what I mean? But we're also talking about two juggernauts with Sony and Microsoft. to be fair, Microsoft makes money in so many other areas. So could they take a loss? Yes, but like you said, they're not going to take that revenue because okay, it's a good way to pay for, if a developer, has a free to play game, well, why not just do ads and then let the developer get a cut of that? Obviously,
Yeah, it takes Microsoft out of the equation.
out of the
having to foot the
equation.
bill.
Right. You know what I'm saying? But for Microsoft too, that means Microsoft can advertise their stuff. So it's not really Microsoft sticking their foot out of it. Microsoft and Sony can stick their foot in it. It's just very subtle. You know what I mean? So
But that would make sense because when I think about it, like a lot of us today will go to the movie theater before the actual showing time because we want to see the trailers before the movie. Those are just commercials, really.
Right.
Very
so,
loud.
Yeah, so if your game you're playing also has commercials for other games that you might like, I don't see that as a problem.
See, there you go. So that's what I'm saying. It's that little, we're not going to get involved, but we're also going to, make this work for us type of deal. So,
there have been proof of concept sort of these like in-game advertisements that are done in sort of like an attempt at doing them organically. I think there's Ubisoft had a partnership with a company who did ads in Trackmania, and it's sort of like these billboards alongside the racetrack with like phone ads, that sort of thing. I remember because I was shown videos of that. I don't actually play Trackmania, but
It's a good game.
just an example of that sort of that it's been done, and I think you can point to that as a proof of concept of sort of like, this is how we want to do it in a way that's not obtrusive, but still gives the advertisers what they want. And like you said, I think there's a way it can be done, but the fear is that even if it's done right at first, who's to say there won't come a point when they're like, okay, you're all right with this, let's push it a little bit further
Yeah.
and put ad breaks into your game, for example. Like where do we stop them? Like, is this a slippery slope, or is there a point afterwards where we can sort of like pull them back and say, hey, we don't want this?
Like I feel like for video games in particular, you will get immediate pushback when a line is crossed. Like you'll hear about it immediately, and like there's evidence of this because you guys remember Capcom talked about putting logos and stuff on like the attire of like their Street Fighter characters. Do you remember this? Like I think it was an idea they threw out there. It was like, oh well, we were thinking about putting ads in some of our games to like kind of fund like a free version or whatever, and like imagine like a Pennzoil sticker on the back of like Ryu's gi or something like that, and like the internet lost their minds. They're like, this is an awful idea, and it was an awful idea, and so we've not heard about that since.
Yes, but that's not always the case because there's absolutely huge amounts of pushback for day one DLC. Games flopped. Like part of it was blamed on like day one DLC, don't buy this game. Like back when that was a thing in like 2013, as being the next terrible thing that we hate and we can't have. Guess what's still there? Stuff like the tiered pre-order stuff where it's like you have to literally buy three different versions of this game in order to get all of the pre-order stuff. People absolutely had huge backlash over that. Still happening. So, well,
But that's because people kept buying it.
but like that's the thing. Like, yeah, you can have backlash over it, but that does not mean that it's going to stop it.
That's fair.
And Jesse hit the nail on the head just before I was about to say it. So now, what happens when you start doing DLC for free to play? Now that's another wave of income there that if the game does kind of pick up steam, would you do a DLC for a reasonable cheap price to also add revenue to that developer, depending? Because we all know, we've seen the whole DLCs that show up in the sports games are notorious for this. Ultimate pack or legendary series or whatever, and you get this much and this much. But if they're trying to look at giving developers more money and certain ways to find ways to give these developers more money. I mean, as consumers, we got to think about it. Well, if you like this game, come on, you're getting it for free. But if you want these developers to keep continuing what they're doing in a certain way, they got to get a little something too. I mean, Microsoft might be that platform that they're using, but they still need to get paid somehow. I mean, we could always sit here and say, well, then Microsoft needs to be playing these guys so that they can still. That's not how business works. That's not how capitalism works. Sorry. Something's got to give some way or another. And companies will do the best that they can to make sure that their cost is at a certain point. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So if it means, well, look, we'll be the backing, but this has to happen where these guys get paid. Okay, so then the consumers might have to kick out maybe a little bit more money to help with this so that they continue to do what they're doing if you like this game that much. You know?
And it's reasonable. Like, people got to get paid for the work they do. Right? Like that's that's the root of what this stuff is based on.
Right.
Like, I think all the costs are going up for everything. So people are like, hey, are there other ways we can get this paid for?
I think
so. Like,
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think part of the backlash, I know for me personally, and I'm guessing for all of you as well, being, salt of the earth, good people, that when we see stuff like this, when we see, Ryu with a Pennzoil logo on his key or, ads and free games or all that, is that we know deep down in our heart of hearts, the majority of this money is not going to the people who deserve it, the people who made it, but it is going to go to buy the CEO another yacht. Like,
what if he really needs that yacht, though, Jeff? Like the first one is like it's last season's yacht. Like he can't roll with his other millionaire buddies in last season's yacht.
I do question though whether it is fundamentally just as capitalistic and maybe a little bit like greedy of us to say, well, that money is only going to the people who don't need it anyway. Why should I bother to pay? I think, that might be a little bit too far of a pivot in the other direction. It's like, why should we bother to pay? It's only going to go to filling the pockets of the CEO. And I'm like, okay, but that attitude, you feel like, you're not sticking it to the man by not by rejecting ads in games, put it that way. I mean, that's not directed at you, Jesse, but it's like, let's not frame this as some sort of like anti-capitalist like statement about I'm not going to participate in this. It's like, so there are a lot of people in, we don't know if this is only going to buy the CEO another yacht. It could very well go to like, paying to not have these poor developers crunch for 12 hours a day. I don't think crunch needs to happen either way, but maybe they have an excuse not to force these people to crunch.
And I think this,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's like that whole gray area. Like we really don't know unless we're seeing, unless we're seeing financial statements, which we are never going to see. But you know what I mean? It's always that gray area. I'm like, man, is it really going to help these people or is it really not? I mean, it's just kind of like well, if I like the game, I'm going to play it anyway. I'm going to pay for this. I'm going to pay for that. It is what it is. You just hope it just goes into the right place, and to Jesse's point, I mean, you read about this throughout the years of how, and you even see it now, hence why you have these unions being developed amongst these developers and everything else because they're doing all this labor and not getting paid their right portion of the amount of work that they're doing. You know what I mean? So, it is that fine line to think about it on either side, but it's just one of those, man, if there was something that can give you a little bit more that feeling like, all right, then it really is going to them, but we really won't ever know. But we always see the negative end. Like I said, in the past years now, the whole unionization that's being picked up in the gaming industry when it comes to developers and this and that, because of the long laborious hours and deadlines and working for peanuts type of deal. You know what I mean? If Microsoft and Sony can make it happen where developers are getting paid more without them coming out of their pocket, oh, best believe they will walk that fine line as much as possible if they don't have to do certain things. But like I said, Microsoft is a juggernaut. Sony is a juggernaut. They can more than likely get away with certain things if need be. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But now, can anybody else do like what they do? Probably not. So,
well, I mean, this has already existed in some form in the mobile space.
Right.
A lot of stuff from the mobile space has bled over into like the AA, AAA space over the years. Like, I do think it's inevitable that like full on ads are going to start playing on your console in your game at some point. It's going to be a matter of these are the good versions, these are the bad versions. The people are going to play what they want to play, and they'll deal with what they want to deal with to get through them. Yeah, what happened, Jesse?
Isn't that already a thing with Mike? Like, isn't half of your Xbox Series and One home screen ads?
Yes,
pretty much.
but it is relevant ads. Like I don't have as many sneaker ads on my Xbox as I do on my Facebook.
Many.
But that's you just said it right there. Microsoft is using.
There was a Halo boot.
Yeah,
like that did happen.
Like Microsoft is using their platform to what they want to push out for, whatever reason, whatever game's coming out. We're gonna put our ads to our console. We're gonna use Windows as our advertisement platform.
I don't think that's not to be expected, right? Like the thing I'm the most worried about is that, you're going to be playing, let's use Halo, for example. And like, as soon as the match is over, you want to look at like your kill death ratio, whatever. And instead is playing you a Sears commercial for, DÜDÜ by Calvin Klein. Like,
something just way off the wall.
Yeah, like just what is this? Like in that instance, I could be sold on, okay, this commercial is for the Halo TV show. I was already in that universe, that headspace. It might be something I'm interested in watching, right? Like that doesn't bother me as much as just this completely incongruous, out of left field thing that just feels out of place.
I could be wrong, but go ahead if you're not done. Sorry.
No. I'm basically just saying, like, yeah, I can get behind ads that make sense to me in moments that make sense, like a lot more than the ones that pull you out of the experience you're having.
Lampy said a really good thing, but before we get to that, but I think that the problem with that would be if you're playing Halo, there's a fairly good chance you are already aware of the Halo TV show, and your interest of that is mostly set on if you're going to watch it or not. Versus,
that's true.
If you're playing Halo, you might be a stinky basement dweller who doesn't know about the new cologne. And thus, that's a whole new market for them to tap into.
Halo fragrance, dirt, shotgun,
gunpowder. Smell like the energy sword. You love you noob.
I mean, you guys are slowly selling me on a perfume ad in the middle of my Halo, though.
I have actually seen candles that claim to have those sorts of smells for video games, but granted, that market has not been cornered by the actual companies. This is like Etsy sellers.
That's true. To your point, Rachel, my partner bought me bonfire candle from Dark Souls, like a little gamer sense or something like that. Company.
I mean, like it's not the worst thing in the world. This is all I'm getting at.
Lampy also mentioned. So Casey, what you're saying is you want more targeted ads.
Honestly, yes. I kind of have zero problem with targeted ads, though I understand how scary it is when you just say a thing in conversation and then those things start to appear around you.
Yeah.
That's just scary because, like, who was listening to me? Everything, apparently. But at the same time, yes, I look at those I look at those initial D sneaker ads every single time they pop up on my Facebook. I want those sneakers. I'm not going to buy them right now because I don't have the money, but I do want them. So keep showing them to me until I get the money.
I will say though, I do have some Naruto and Hunter x Hunter shoes that I just bought. So
See,
I ain't gonna lie.
As long as it makes sense. As
So
long as it makes sense.
being an anime guy and I see certain, I was like, oh man, yeah, that'd look nice with this anime outfit. Got it already. Okay, good deal. But I would say too, when it comes to back to the revenue and developers type deal, actually, when we're talking about clothes and stuff, that's also a good way for developers to make money. If toys or products are made from the game that they've developed and it does come hot, they should literally get a bigger portion of the cut that could also help them versus everybody else. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, that goes into like, rights dealings, right? Like how much percentage does the developer get on merchandising after they've, made a publishing deal, and who owns the IP now after they get big distribution? Like that's all like back end business deals type stuff. So there's no telling who's getting what from what now. But on that note, I believe we've come to the end of today's show. I want to thank my 3 guests for joining me. It's been a little while, but I felt like we fell right back into our conversations, and it was delightful. So thank you so much. Rachel, why don't you let folks know what you have coming up this week that they can check out?
Okay. Oh, actually, I am going to be in Los Angeles tomorrow and
Ooh.
Tuesday. And Tuesday is the first day of GamesBeat Summit 2022. And that is going Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Wednesday and Thursday are going to be virtual days. So I'll be around, but I'm not actually going to be... I'm going to be back home by that point, but I am going to be in Los Angeles on Tuesday for the first day, which is our in-person event. So everybody be sure to wear masks if you attend. And other than that, you can find me on Twitter at Rachel Kaiser. Everything goes through there. You'll probably see some travel pictures of me wandering around Los Angeles looking incredibly out of place. And in terms of just non-work stuff, I'm going to be putting out another Stay Golden Sunday Golden Girls recap episode today. And tomorrow we're going to have another of our Masonry Monday Perry Mason episode recaps, which is my new series. So,
Nice.
And probably at some point I will put out like a long rant about Bridgerton on my Tumblr. So
Please do.
keep an eye out for that. But yeah, in the meantime, that's what I got going on. So hopefully I'll see at least some of you in Los Angeles.
Nice. Jesse, how about you? What do you have coming up?
I will be streaming on my channel, which is twitch.tv/RexConJesse tomorrow from 11 a.m. to like 2-ish p.m. I'm going to play that Machinarium game because it's pretty fun. And I'm working on the next episode of Behind Schedule, and I've already played the game, most of it, for the one after that. So I have to take a break so I get to play some fun games. My partner will be out of town for most of this week. So I'm probably going to do a lot of streaming to fill the social void of having nobody here. So check me out and help me be less alone, as I probably play a lot of Dead by Daylight.
All right, cool. Fat Stacks, what do you have coming up?
Well, for me, Monday, I'm going to try to play some more Mario Kart as usual. Maybe later on today, maybe I might get into Blessed again. But other than that, just working on the anime store. So, of course, you guys can find me on the socials and stuff. The Fat Stacks, Twitter, Instagram, even TikTok, The Fat Stacks. So, if you guys are big into anime, the anime store is the same thing. www.thefatstacks.com. I try to put some unique older stuff in there as well. Little mix of everything. So, if you're interested into stuff like that.
Nice. Definitely check that out if you guys haven't already. You can find me at SignalGears9 on Twitch and Twitter. Later today on the Open Party Twitch channel, Super Smash Sunday is back as well. 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join me, probably Superman Jeff, as we play a bunch of 1v1s with the community. It's a great time. It's a lot of fun. Check it out if you've been missing out. Other than that, I don't know. I might have a review dropping at some point in the future Not even started the game yet, so don't ask me when that's going to be. Probably next month, honestly. I don't even know why I brought it up. But other than that, thanks everybody in the chat. Really appreciate you coming through. That's going to do it for episode 63 of The Sigma Show. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Y'all.